Sid's mind is reborn on the Astral Plane, giving her an opportunity for an entire second life. A fairy tale childhood that will hopefully teach her to become the person the world needs to save it. It's a very welcome return of Oliver and Melanie Bird on this week's Legion, Chapter 25. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Legion. So yes, of course, spoilers ahead, and reminder of our quick jump index system. Just take a look down the description below. We'll have this entire review codified, titleized, time-stamped. Watch the end of the review first. Watch the beginning last. Watch it in any order you would like. Alright, so crank it down towards the end, and kind of a nice actual reprieve of the intense storytelling that we've had. Again, not that I'm complaining in any way, shape, or form, but sometimes you need a breath before you dive into the big finale, a moment of reflection, as it were. So I think this episode was perfectly timed, and in some ways, not a whole lot for me to talk about. That's one thing that the episode felt very self-contained, as it really needed to be as a story telling about this second life of Sydney, learning those important lessons, how to, being taught to ask questions so she'd know how to listen to questions. The whole bit on empathy storyline that Melanie was teaching. All of these lessons so that Sid can cast off part of her old personality and now integrate this new one. And in some ways it's interesting because I believe even David had mentioned something about wanting to give Sid a fairy tale childhood. If she could just change something, give her a fairy tale childhood, grown up with people that love her, how would that have made a difference? So in some ways, by mind wiping her, David kind of gave her something that he had wanted for her. In a very unexpected move, of course. I'm not saying that that was David's plan, but it was sort of an interesting thought that I had while watching this episode. Beautifully placed, again, one of those just beautifully shot episodes. The placement on the astral plane, the idea that this is where lost things are cast aside. Socks, ideas, things that we used to love and toss back, or in case of Sid, her entire memory, her mind getting wiped. Lost her mind, now reappearing on the astral plane. So that was sort of a great way of framing the whole idea. And even the appearance of Cynthia and everyone else, the rest of the Denzians of the astral plane, also lost, whether it be lost innocence, lost minds, lost ideals, all of these things can then bring them into the astral plane, where they can be preyed upon by the big bad wolf, Jerome. What a wonderful sort of antagonist to have here in the astral plane. A reminder of the dark sides of the real world. And I mean, that's really all of what Jerome does. And it's such a great dichotomy between we have with the sort of simplistic farmer existence of Oliver and Melanie, of mom and dad. I don't even know if they actually remembered any of their names during it until like the very end with the whole clothes revealed. So it was just a beautifully well done, and everything, like I said, everything very self-contained, very well explained. We know why the lost things are there, how they appear. We know of Jerome being the temptation, the dark side that wants to come up and suck you in with the, oh, you're living an idyllic existence? Well, here is death. Isn't this a horrible thing? Can you imagine your parents dying? Again, dragging back down into the fears and concerns of the world, which is all what Jerome represented. That and an important warning about chlamydia, which I love to say. It's a great thing. Again, the wolf not only is temptation, but also wolfish, animalistic, the whole sexual drive bit. It was just a great character choice to have for the antagonist. So again, the whole idea was everything was just beautifully done. Every lesson, every moment was explained. Not a whole lot that you need to know coming into it, and not a whole lot carrying out of it outside of, again, the lessons of honesty, compassion, love, giving them an opportunity, knowing that everybody is worth saving, which I thought was another very interesting point that was sort of hit upon when Sid went to try and save Cynthia. And they kidnap her, which was just great. It's not even just tempting. Just throw a hood over and kidnap her, just pull her out. But the words that baby Sid, the teenage Sid there, was trying to use, I know that you've done bad things and that you're not worthy, you think that you're not worthy of love, but you are. Very reminiscent of David's whole pursuit. Don't you think that I'm a good person, that I am somebody worthy of love? So I think ultimately what we're finding by the end here is this is not about defeating David necessarily, but what is needed is David also deserves love. That's all that he has been searching for. And I think with this, Sydney was meant to move past the darkness and the hate and the disappointment and understand that goodness is within everyone and everyone deserves a chance to be saved. Even if they choose ultimately not wanting to, you have to do that. And ultimately, I think that's what will save the world. If Sydney can save David, prove that love, connect on that level, that will save the world. That will stop the end of all things. So I think that's where we're going with it. And this, again, just a beautifully self-contained episode with awesome performances. I mean, it's Jermaine Clement. What else do you expect? Now, of course, when I said fairy tale existence, quite literally a fairy tale existence, we have the Three Little Pigs fairy tale with the big bad wolf, also melding that into a little bit of Red Riding Hood. The little pigs, of course, they're living in a house of straw, Oliver and Melanie. And if we all know the big bad wolf story, the paper house was already blown down, which I love. They just comment on, we don't need to see it. Straw's not going to hold mighty straw. No, it's not. Which, of course, ends up being blown down. And from there, they move into the house of brick in the city, in the slums there, where the big bad wolf is never able to go in. So I love the sort of storylines, the imagery they did maintain of that. At the same time, we have Sid sort of representing Little Red Riding Hood. Specifically, once she gets a little bit older, she's got the big hat going through the city. She's got the red outfit. I mean, again, it's totally completing those fairy tale like images. And I also love how they set the Astral Plane, again, sort of just to the edge of the real world. It's basically, at the first place in the forest, they're living in a planter at the edge of a building where they can go out and finally take a look. There's the real world. You're not ready for it, Have to stay here first. Again, this is the danger area. We're not denying you these things. And that's one thing I really liked about Melanie and Oliver sort of teaching is there's a reason why we do these things. Which again is also very reflective of what fairy tales are, of those lessons that we're supposed to learn. There is an order for these things. When you're young, we let you be wild because being wild is important. When you get older, we give you structure so that you feel safe. All of these things have to happen for a reason. You have to learn how to love before you learn how to hate, because that's what teaches compassion, the whole empathy thing. Again, all of these storylines also, the lessons very reminiscent of fairy tales. The whole empathy lesson is taught as a bedtime story. A girl who had the most amazing power. She could feel everything around, empathy. But also the dangers of what empathy brings in. Where is the line between others and myself? So again, just all very wonderfully framed lessons, very self-contained, every step explained why that we're doing it, in a beautiful fairy tale image. That was interesting. I did the Astral Plane image did sort of change once the straw house got blown down and they zoomed out. It was more like they were living on a microbe, on a bacterium, on a small, looked sort of like a planet, but I think it was meant to be like a large cell. So I loved how that sort of changed and shifted also. Now, of course, one of the other denizens of the astral plane, the lost soul of Cynthia, which I believe is one of David's little cult girls. She looked quite familiar there. There to represent, again, the dangers of temptation, that everyone can fall, that not everybody can be saved. And I love the sort of idea, even if it was sort of brought up there. Obviously, we established very quickly that Melanie and Jerome do not have a relationship. Oliver willing to sort of talk and chat. Melanie just shooing away with a broom. But makes soup. That sort of sends them up, and here's with Cynthia. Oh, I just found out she lost her innocence. Good for me. I don't know if he was planning on teaching her about chlamydia or not there. And then being pulled in. Yes, Jerome, you get out of here. No, you can stay. You know, the attempt to save, to give people that opportunity. Cynthia here really representing the fact that that doesn't always work. That temptation can always come. And I loved how Jerome also did that. Oh, your poor mother, you didn't want to see that? And yes, the darkness on that, tucking you in at night with the flakes of dried vomit in her hair. Very nasty. Or the boyfriend, yes, used to beat you, but he really misses you again. Such a codependent relationship type of thing. Oh, come on. Oh, what about this? The drugs. And again, that type of temptation, always willing to go in. I loved when we met up with Cynthia's kids, friends afterwards. The girl with the vodka. That's really good. Comes in vanilla and strawberry. Flavor drinks. Or the boy who've got all of the sugary cereals, video games. Do you like video games? Again, all the temptations, or apparent potential temptations, to draw into darkness away from the sort of idyllic chance of growing up, and one that's really more corruptive. I mean, I personally don't feel the same about video games, but again, it's all representational here of the potential darkness. So I just loved how that was portrayed. And again, Jerome as the wolf, very creepy but very comic, and the constant repeats of chlamydia. Did they teach you about chlamydia? I love that was reflected back in the learning lessons of young Sid, when Melanie is teaching her all about the facts of life and where babies come from. Do you have any questions? What's chlamydia? It was just a perfect bring back from Jerome's earlier statements. And the fact that Melanie told her exactly what it is, I thought was great, because this represents that it's not the knowledge that they were running from, even though that's sort of what Oliver had said when they had left the forest. You know, then came the lean years where we left the forest and went into the slums, you know, to escape the knowledge. It was the knowledge of the rest of the world that Sid wasn't able to meet. And that's sort of, again, what I think Jerome as the wolf was representing, is giving her those dark knowledge without being prepared to deal with it. I think that even sort of, in some ways, can tie back to the whole Garden of Eden bit. It wasn't necessarily, you know, eating the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, but the fact that they weren't prepared to deal with that knowledge, which then becomes corruptive. And I think that's really what Oliver here was representing, is, again, everything has to happen in time, in a sequence, for a reason. They have to escape that knowledge of the outside world and Sid's truth and what's really going on until Sid was ready to deal with it. And again, and once that happened, then of course it allowed everything to change. But of course, the real world is a scary place, and a young person has to go through a lot to be sure that they're ready to enter it. And that, of course, ends up being Sid's whole decision to save Cynthia. She got a glimpse of the real world. She didn't ever want to see it again. But Melanie telling her, but the real world needs you. Bad things can be fixed. We are trying to teach you to be the person that the world needs so you can save it. And the test that she has to pass is that one of compassion. Not only of just reaching out, understanding, as she has told Cynthia, is that even when you do bad things, that you can still be saved. But the acceptance that there is only so much that you can do, that an individual has to be able to make that choice for themselves. Which, of course, leads to that big final confrontation between Oliver and Jerome. And that is our Scene of the week for this week. And of course, yeah, the rap battle. Come on. Now, I mentioned just last review how much musical bullets aren't necessarily my favorite thing. Last week, look, you had a nice little song there, whatever, but it didn't develop the storyline anymore. Here's exact opposite. First off, we have Oliver in his full Oliver gear. I mean, come on, that was awesome to see. That's what we were waiting this whole time. Real Oliver to show himself. But the rap battle itself was a character exploration, how these two forces deal with the world, how they identify themselves, and how they deal with the world. It was entertaining. Also, wasn't that in the same club from the beginning of season 2, where Oliver, as the face of Farouk, was doing his dance-off against David? It looked like the same club to me. Which, again, would have its own kind of storylines of then Oliver being more successful, good, being victorious in this particular battle. The last one, I guess, maybe a little bit more muddled. But again, just a great bit. Talking about his testicles, elephant, the size of the testicles, that means I'm masculine, but also feminine too. Oliver showing wisdom, compassion, strength from his sense of self, whereas Jerome talking about his animalistic, how he can tempt, how he can power, how he can overcome. Just, again, a physical and sort of mental battle back and forth. Ultimately, seemingly won by Jerome with his power and nastiness, but ultimately turned around with compassion, love. How does Oliver win? To show that he still has people that care about him. He still has people that send him cards. He still has someone to go back to. Whereas the wolf, with all of his darkness, with all of his feeding on needs, there is no love there. Ultimately, this is an individual who is alone. And that really sets up that whole difference of individuals to be saved. With love and compassion, somebody really has something. Without that, all they have is hate. They have nothing. There is no other human connection there. So yeah, Oliver wins the rap battle, but the real lesson that's being taught is, of course, Jerome loses, so now he's sympathetic. So Cynthia comes back up and takes him back in. She doesn't really want to be saved. Which again is the ultimate lesson that we had, that Sid has to learn. It's important. You have to try and save them. You have to. But you have to accept that people make their own choices. And once we do that, then Melanie recognizes Oliver in his gear. She turns in. Sid pops up, and now she is ready to return to the world. Sadly, without Oliver and Melanie. I was really hoping that they would come back. But now, again, now a whole different way. Instead of the Sid driven by anger and betrayal, we now have someone who's driven by compassion that knows you have to give everyone a chance. It's up to them whether or not to take it. So yeah, and then we get our whole final scene, which again, it really is the beginning of our final chapter, which is greatly done too. As Sid sort of wakes up, has a little difference. I love running into Carrie afterwards. Have you done something different? Have you changed? Well, I lived an entire second life in 20 minutes, and maybe my hair pulled back. Looks nice. Getting the wrist things to go back into the time doorway, which is not collapsing as it should. Things are broken. That's allowing the time cats to escape. Whole great final sequence. And again, love the Carrie dynamic here was awesome. That Carrie, female Carrie, has to fight, has to protect Sydney. But she's all beat up. She's wounded. Only way for her to be better is for male Carrie to take the pain, take all of that. And we've seen that happen before, how for Carrie to heal, other Carrie has to take the injury. And so that was sort of a great bit in decision making. You can do your job sitting. I have to stand up. And of course, big final escape from the onsetting cats. Very scary. But like I said, that scene also set up as the beginning of the big final push How do we know? Because the opening credits scene starts in this. We didn't have it throughout the entire episode up until this very end. And like I said, that symbolizes that that storyline is wrapped up. What's happened in the time ship there is the beginning of the end. So that's actually the title of the next episode. The beginning of the end, and then the end of the end. But they're going to win! They feel it right. Carrie feels it, and I think Sid is optimistic too. Alright, just a couple of small things. One, interesting that young Sid had a headless baby named Hetty, or doll named Hetty, and young David had a doll with a giant, scary head. Angriest boy in the world. I'm not sure if that means anything or not, but just something that we thought about. I loved how Sid's memories were coming back in the dream, was giving her a little flashback of her experience in time with David. Just a nice way to show that the memories and ideas that are still out there, they're still encroaching. She's not ready to face and deal with them. Which is, you know, the whole discussion with Oliver. You have to use your words if you want us to help you. Anyway, I just thought that was a brilliant way of sort of relaying that idea, even the presence of Farouk as a devil with yellow eyes. But I think there was another sort of imagery of Farouk or his darkness in the background. When we got to the city, and Oliver had asked Melanie, oh, where's our daughter? She's inside learning long division. He goes inside. There's a shot where we get to see appearing down the street. And down in the background of the city, there is this sort of glowing dark green cloud in the back that for some reason very much reminded me of Farouk's influence on a younger David. So I'm not sure if it was that or just the general darkness that was out there that can be the danger for Sid. But did just find that little bit of imagery interesting. Finding the heart there... There on the street in a little box there. Don't touch it, it becomes bitter. It happens when they get here. Yeah, a lost heart in the astral plane of this sort of design. Makes sense that it's bitter. Also the little girl again. Don't forget your heart! Which was bitter, but she left it behind. Allows her the chance to have a more open one once she finishes her lessons. Just a great line at the very beginning when Oliver brings home Sid and Melanie's wondering, what's her name? Her name is Sid. Sydney. Well, how do you know that? She told me. Did she tell you anything else? No, of course not. She's a baby. I don't know why. I just found that really funny. But again, it's sort of perfect with the whole aspect of being in the astral plane is that memory and time is all very questionable and fluid. It just, I don't know. It made me laugh. Was an interesting character choice also to make sure that Melanie was really more pushing of young Sid to re-enter the world, knowing that there was a reason she had to go back. There was something for her to do. Whereas Oliver really a lot more of the sage advice, dropping on more fatherly in that. And some very good important pieces too. One being real grown-ups aren't that naive. I thought was an important lesson, especially since a lot of children's cartoons always have the adults, the villains, being kind of stupid and unawares. Reality in dealing with the real world is real grown-ups aren't as naive. And also the final advice that actually Melanie gave was wonderful. Something that personally I appreciate. That it's not us or them, it's us and them. We're not separate. We're together. It's about all of us together. I just thought that was a brilliant piece of advice and maybe something all of us should keep in mind more. So of course I mentioned how Carrie had to get into Carrie in order to heal so she could fight and all of that. I thought that was, again, a beautifully handled scene of male Carrie's trepidation about doing it, but also resignation and acceptance that it's the only thing that had to happen. Just pushing the wheelchair out there, making sure it's ready for him before he pulls her in. And again, just a great simple shot of him spinning, her disappearing, and him turning back around, and then the injuries coming up. It was just a simple but brilliant way of showing that. And then we also get that great Yahoo moment as the time cats are approaching in their awesome and creepy way. And it looks like Sid and Mail Carrier are going to be caught. And then Female Carrier just pops up right from behind. Ta-da! Healed. And push and kicks and doing her awesome carry stuff. Anyway, I loved how they framed that scene. Why do you use an umbrella in the rain but not in the snow? It's a fair question. Perfectly childlike. All right, so that is it now. 2 episodes left. Next week is the beginning of the end. And after that, the end of the end. And we have Sid and the Carries going after Dave in the time tunnels with the Tomcats close on their heels. Very excited. Looks like we're going back to the battle between Farouk and Professor X. Is that the change that David wants to make to influence that battle? Maybe help defeat Farouk at the beginning so that Farouk can never inhabit his body. It is one small little change that gives him his parents and can alter the whole of the present, past, future moving forward. Time travel mechanics and language is all very difficult. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think, hit on that, the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation. Anyway, unnecessary reference there, but very excited and sad. This should be an awesome ending, but it's also going to be over then. So, yes and no, but still can't wait to see it. Anyway, so that will wrap us up for now. Thank you, as always, for joining me with these reviews. And as always, if you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, throw those down in the description below. What do you guys think of this episode? Very self-contained. Do you understand the lessons? Do you appreciate the lessons being learned? Do you thought it was a waste of time and you just wanted to jump into the action? It can go either way. Let me know what you guys think and what you are hoping to see in the finale. Throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe. I know we're wrapping this up, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is almost over, but we got Preacher coming up. We got Walking Dead's 10th season coming up. We're going to be doing, actually, a discussion on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a couple of weeks, the whole season. Plus, we're going to be doing a bit over with Mark over Enchantment of Eternity, talking about seasons 3 and 4 of Lost. So if you're a Lost fan, keep an eye out. I'll let you know when that is going on. Anyway, so you won't miss any of those things if you're a subscriber. Do that by clicking this button right here and hit the bell next to it. You'll get all the notifications. And we'll throw up a couple of our latest reviews right here for you to check out. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.